Adam, hi. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm looking forward to this. This will be a good conversation for anybody out there who's struggling in relationships. Let's make it very easy for them to find love.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah, that's the whole thing with this podcast. I feel like it's sort of my little way of trying to do good in the world as I look and I see so many people unhappy in relationships. And so, yes, I'm hoping we can help them today a little bit.
Isn't that funny how podcasting goes that way? I've got a podcast too, and it was how can we make relationships better? Let's talk about relationships everywhere, and then people can hear the information. I think that podcasting is the new gatekeeping for the world, and I think that we get to pull together all the data from all the best people, and we get to curate that information for the people that listen to us at home and they trust us as those sources. Well, if this person vouches for them, then they're okay, and they spread through the network and they start finding who to trust. I think that's what podcasts have done in our new world now that we're living in.
Totally. And I feel like whoever is sort of meant to find it will at the right time, so it all just kind of works out, right?
Agreed. Agreed.
So, Adam, you're the attachment specialist. And so, on a basic level, tell me sort of what that means, like what that's about.
Yeah. So I was a psychotherapist for many, many years. I was a marriage and family therapist in particular. That's a 9-year process to become a marriage and family therapist with licensure, with apprenticeship, everything. And the number one thing I found that kept coming up that was the core of everybody's diagnoses was attachment theory, except that they didn't teach it to us in school. They told us it wasn't important. All the other therapists I talked to found that they said, I was told it wasn't important too. And I started talking about it online, and it just poof like wildfire. Everyone needed to know about it because it's the basis of all of your relationship problems and it fixes them. And I said, I'm going to specialize in this, just like you with your podcast. I'm going to specialize in this. I'm going to make the world a better place. I'm going to teach everybody in the world about attachment. And that is what I do now.
I love it. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about attachment theory for just a sec. For those who have no idea, what is it?
Attachment theory is the idea that the way that you, as a small child, learn to connect to other people to get your needs met and to feel safe, that behavior pattern carries through into all of your adult relationships until you choose to fix it. If you don't fix it, you will continue operating as if you were in that pool of people, whether they were manipulative, they were super anxious and smothering, they were controlling, they were distant. You will treat everybody else in your life exactly the same, and you will keep finding those same patterns over and over and over.
Wow. And so when we're talking about a child, like what ages are we talking about that impacts us the
Oh,
most?
birth. I've got 5 kids, and the moment they come out, you know what they do? They cry. They look for food. They look for comfort. They say, I am suddenly very cold. Please, somebody warm me up. And they start learning, if I cry, does someone take care of me? Does someone hold me? Am I dumped off somewhere and left to cry for 6 hours by myself? Is somebody going to care for me? Is this a world where people do that? Is it a world where nobody takes care of each other? And the brain at birth already begins forming these attachment styles. And as you go forward through the next couple of years, you start saying, are people going to love me and really care for me? And will we build a loving relationship back and forth? Or is there something wrong with me that makes other people not love me? People at home, maybe if you have felt like you don't deserve love, if you overthink in your relationships all the time, if you feel like everybody is one step away from finding out that you're a fraud and abandoning you, that's called anxious attachment style. For other people at home, maybe that are listening, if you feel like you can never trust other people, that they are unstable, maybe they're not evil, but they don't do the right thing when they're stressed out. So you have to separate from everybody else, solve problems completely alone, and everything is about assessing risk all the time. That's avoidant attachment style. And you can even get a blend of the two if you've been hurt enough in childhood, what we call disorganized style, where you don't really trust yourself, you don't trust others. You'll flip back and forth between them in relationships. If you've seen somebody who's really chaotic in relationships and can't quite figure out what they want and they set things on fire and run screaming, that's usually the disorganized style.
And so from birth until when? Like until what? Is there a certain age that's like a cutoff?
Oh, about 90 years old. I no, so my oldest clients come to me and they come to me in their 70s. My oldest one was 79 years old. And they were still following these same old behavior patterns, and I help them fix them. So you can change your behavior patterns, you can change your attachment style. Carl Jung even talked about this. You can change your behaviors as long as you are alive. Okay. But when does it become fixed is the question usually people, you know what? I would say anywhere from birth up until anecdotally, maybe about 10, maybe about 12. You really start cementing those ideas in there as you're headed toward more adulthood, those teen years at least. Some people might say 7, 8, 9, but I've seen it continue to grow and continue to expand. And again, it can be changed. You just have to have the right experiences to change it. Most people avoid the experiences that are going to change it.
Well, that's so interesting because I actually sort of learned about the attachment stuff. So, and I would imagine that you've had clients that are like this, where I was in a bunch of relationships, throughout college and then after college. And it was different people, but the same things kept happening over and over and over
Oh,
again.
yeah.
And I got so frustrated that I finally was like, I've had it. I switched therapists and I was like, I need to figure this out because I'm sick of it. And then this is kind of what for me snowballed into like learning a little bit about this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so do you see that too, that this is sort of the
Oh my
process?
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Is it okay if I ask, what were some of the patterns you kept seeing repeat for the
Let's see.
people at home to kind of listen to? I bet they're going to connect with them immediately.
Yeah. So let me think here. So it was sort of like some narcissism. I
Hmm.
dated a couple alcoholics.
Hmm.
Um, it
Hmm.
was just like anger issues, like lack
Hmm.
of communication, like this type of thing. And just I would
Hmm.
end up so deflated after it was just each one like chipped away at me a little bit, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I think you hit a point where it's like I just can't take it anymore, right?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I'm glad
Yeah.
you shared that because the people at home are probably going, that's me. I date those guys too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So many women are dating these guys who are not men, who are going to make good husbands, good fathers, good partners, good anything, really. And the problem is, number one, when you grow up in a pool, a family where everybody's behaviors are really bad, you're just looking for a little bit better than your family's behaviors. You're like, this is great. He's only drunk like 6 days a
Yeah.
week. He whips beer bottles at the wall, but at least he doesn't throw them at me. That's a great thing.
Step up. Yeah.
And you really think it's great because you don't have a framework yet for what a loving relationship looks like. That's something you have to learn. And you also will try typically to find a way to be needed. You find somebody who will need you because the belief is nobody has ever loved me for me. And again, anybody at home having that feeling, nobody's ever loved me for me. But you know what they might love me for is the things I do for them. So if they have problems, I can take care of those for them. I'll be their assistant and they'll never fire me because they will never be able to do those things on their own. I'll take care of it for them. And you earn that love and approval. And then what happens is it turns out those people don't really have it in them to be grateful. They actually don't biochemically bond with you properly. They usually don't get the oxytocin bonding, the love hormone. They don't get the vasopressin bonding, the bonding through solving problems with you because they don't solve problems with you. They don't even solve problems at all usually. They don't get the serotonin because they're not really building communication and conversation with you. Those people usually are on what's called the dopamine and cortisol pathway, where they are stressed out all the time. They binge on dopamine endlessly to try to bring that stress down. And that dopamine can come from porn, it can come from nudes on the internet, it can come from DMing girls on Instagram, micro cheating. It can come from actual cheating. It can come from alcoholism. It can
Hmm.
come from spending and gambling all your money away. It can come from a variety of places. And if you're endlessly trying to please these people, they will not bond with you chemically. And they are actually programmed to break your heart as you go forward into the relationship. So I'm proud of you. You fixed that pattern. You've solved it.
It's been a long journey. Yeah, I tried. And, I will say, and I had this thought process at certain points, like, but I can change them. I can change them. It's not like I can do it. You get people that say this too, I would
Oh my,
imagine. Yeah.
well, so it sounds like, not to diagnose you, but it sounds like a hint of anxious attachment style is what was
Yeah.
there. And people with anxious attachment style say, well, it's not that other people are the problem. I am the problem. So
Hmm.
other people are good and they're better than I am. And if I'm willing to change, I just need to understand how. So other people, if I help them understand how to change, they'll see it and they'll do it and they'll see how much I love them. And my love will help them because if I got that much love, I would do anything.
And they'll
And
see how
again,
great they are. That's what I was like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. But the other person is not biochemically receiving that. They're on that cortisol pathway. they're often avoidantly attached, and there's a lot of good avoidantly attached people. So these are usually the manipulatively avoidantly attached people that will manipulate you. They believe bad things, usually about other people. They distrust you and distrust everybody else in the world. So if you share your needs, they say, whoa, 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 you're trying to overwhelm me and trap me, all kinds of things like that. They don't biochemically bond to you. So they do not operate the same way you do. So what makes sense to you, how you would change, they will not. They
Mm.
absolutely will not.
So then what do we do? So then it's like, okay, wow, I'm with this person who's a narcissist or whatever. So it's just taking a step back. Like, how do we then change the pattern? What can we do?
Well, I don't want anybody at home, please God, I don't want anybody at home to fall into this pattern. So I have two absolute heartbreaking patterns that I see. One is women who are 8 years into a relationship. They have never mentioned commitment. And
Mm,
they email me saying, Adam, we're 8 years in and I really want to get married and have babies, but we've never ever talked about commitment ever. Do you think he's going to do it? And I say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's going to go catastrophically wrong, almost certainly. If it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. You guys really should have talked about it like the first week. Number one, typically. And number two, the other heartbreaking pattern, I actually wrote a book about it because it was so heartbreaking, is exhausted wives, bewildered husbands over my shoulder. At 20 years of marriage, a lot of women, they don't think that they can stand up for themselves. But once they have kids and that man is continuing to act that way toward their kids, and their kids start getting anxious and their kids have attachment problems, this is how those things spread through families generationally,
mhm,
then she gets so resentful of him and he becomes the enemy in the home and he usually doesn't understand why. Then they both are angry and fighting, and he just thinks it's all going to be swept under the rug. And she gets more and more miserable through the years as they go on, until the last kid finally graduates high school, and then she demands a divorce on the spot. And then he feels like he's been blindsided, and he takes to the internet to complain about all women are horrible and they're all monsters and they just destroy you and they don't care whose life they ruin, and they'll just leave you and sleep with the next door neighbor. And that's often the rise of a lot of those red pill stories online that are happening right now. But I'm telling you these awful, horrible stories for all the women at home who are, like 3 months into one of these relationships, like 6 months into one of these relationships. The best thing you could start doing is honestly asking questions. Ask
mm,
more questions. Start
yeah.
talking about things. Start being clear about what you want. I'm actually releasing a course next Monday on how to speak to an avoidant man, because some of them, most of them are good people. They just don't understand feelings at all. So when you try to share your needs with them, you use feelings language. Like, I need to feel loved. And that sounds terrifying to them because it sounds like a moving goalpost. It sounds arbitrary and they don't know how to feel loved at all because they never have. So they feel like you're just demanding endless attention from them. So if you can use measurable language, I need to feel loved, and these are the three things that make me feel loved, and what I call the what, why, and how often method. This is why those things are important to me, and how this is why they make me feel loved. And this is about how often I need them so that I can feel good, or how often, or how long of a time I need them for. And if you can make them measurable, most avoidant men will actually take care of your needs. But the ones who don't, that's the clearest sign that you have to get out. You have to get out. If you make it clear and measurable, and he's dismissive and hurtful and doesn't care and weaponizes it against you and makes you walk on eggshells, and you feel like you can't breathe or speak because he's going to take it out on you, get out. Get out, and then do your work. Do your work, like Michelle here. Do your work. Become not anxious. Make sure that you break those patterns, and then start a podcast about love and teach other people to do the same. There you go.
I know that is part of what inspired me. But so would you say, is that the most typical dynamic, is like you have a wife that gets frustrated after all those years, or do you see it the other way around too, where like there's a husband who's frustrated, usually the husband,
I
I mean,
see the other way around all the time,
yeah,
curiously. A lot of the other way come to me, men who are more anxiously attached or are frustrated, and the wife is getting progressively worse on her side and she's more avoidant. I see a tremendous amount of those people in my coaching practice, and do a lot of couples coaching for them. But the research does bear out that it's primarily women who get anxious and primarily men who are more avoidant. And those are the patterns that unfortunately we see play out in the dating pool. That's why the dating pool is so chaotic right now.
yeah, right. Well, and I did want to mention that, right, we have dating apps and all these things, and I actually met my husband on a dating app, but
Mhm.
people I know struggle with it a lot. And so, in your opinion, is it a good thing or a bad thing to have these dating apps? And because I know,
Well, the
well,
research shows that the average American man spends 2 hours a day on dating apps right now, which is an overwhelming amount of time to be getting very few results. Unfortunately, what I have found is that most men are using dating apps the absolute wrong way. Women too. But they're going on, they list themselves like a product on Amazon, first of all. They are trying to capture attention like an Amazon listing. They're trying to commodify themselves, and then the only people they get are people that are dopamine focused, or they get no results at all and they get endlessly ghosted and no matches, bad conversations. So you absolutely need to use dating apps the correct way, and then you can get pretty good results. It's a tool. Be smart.
so wait, what's the correct way? What would be the correct?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked. Ooh, I'm glad
Yeah.
you asked. So the correct way is, if you want a committed relationship, you need to be marketing correctly to the niche that is looking for a committed relationship. Those are people that are looking in your profile for you wanting a committed relationship. So right up front, I coach my clients on their bio all the time. I am looking for a committed long-term relationship, just like you would on a job resume. Looking for a long-term committed relationship. Then you under that, you start listing the character traits of a partner you want. Reverse psychology tells the person that that's what you are because that's what you value. Underneath that, you list the things that make you sound stable, like your job, your career, how long you've been there, maybe where you live, your family values, things like that, how you want to be close to family. And you close off the dating profile with something that says, only looking for committed relationship. Please do not DM me if you're only looking for casual. Something like that. Please DM me only if you're serious about a committed relationship. Close the door for anything that's not. This really ties the whole thing together and shows people that you're legitimate. And then here's the key. Most guys who come in, they have no idea. Oh my gosh, the conversations. You're on dating apps, right?
Yeah.
Please tell me how many men sent you DMs like, "Hey, I see you like sushi. What's your favorite sushi?" Or, "Hey, do you like movies?" How many guys had that conversation with you in the DMs?
Yeah, a lot. And I was also shocked too at just like what was said on the profile, like you were saying, like just the craziest thing,
Yeah,
just like the
I'm
weirdest. Yeah,
fun. I like
yeah,
dogs. I'm hiking. Here's a
yeah,
picture of me slamming 8 beers at once. Like, yeah,
yeah,
stuff like that. Like a
yeah,
husband, right? Husband material.
yeah, yeah.
Let
Right.
me
And
let me
we're,
ask you this.
yes.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Um, let's pretend you want to buy a purse.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's pretend you want to buy a purse. You go to a purse store, right? You're going to go to a store that sells purses.
Hmm.
Okay. You walk in the purse store. Let's role play this a little, just briefly. Let's say you walk in the purse store and the guy behind the counter goes, "Hi, how you doing? Do you like sushi?" Say, "Yeah, I guess." He's kind of blocking your way getting in the door so you can even look at the purses. Cool. Did you know Jupiter has a lot of moons? Okay. Do you
What?
like
Yeah.
movies? Yes, I like movies. Well, I do too. John Wick, that's my favorite movie. What's your favorite movie? I don't know. Beauty and the Beast. Okay, cool. And he just asks you endless questions that have nothing to do with a purse, right?
Yeah.
At what point do you walk out and leave if he's blocking your way into the store? At what point do you say, "Well,
Oh,
thanks, bye"?
yeah. I would say probably shortly after that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
immediately. And this is
Yeah.
why guys wonder why they get ghosted in conversations on
Mm,
dating apps. Okay. Now let's pretend that you go to a second purse store. Okay. Let's say you go to another shop. You walk in and the gentleman says, "Hi, looks like you're here to buy a purse. We have many purses here. Can you please tell me what style you're looking for?" And you say, "I just bought my wife a purse, so I'm going to use the one I bought her.
yeah.
I'm looking for an what is it? Over the shoulder clutch."
Yeah.
Wow, an over the shoulder clutch. We have many of those. Do you have a favorite color? Yeah, I'd really like a pale blue. Fantastic. We have some of those as well. Would you like a wallet included with that or no? Yes, I would. Wonderful. Let me show you right over here. This is exactly the purse you are looking for right here. Here's the price. Would you like to ask me anything else about it, or would you like to take this home with you right now? Right?
That's different, different experience. Yeah.
Are you likely to buy that purse?
Yeah. I would say
Was that a
so.
good customer buying experience for
I
you?
would say yes. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, go back to the dating apps. Are women on dating apps to talk about sushi or movies or your favorite cartoon? No. What are women on dating apps for? They're not there to even find a boyfriend, right? They're on Tinder
Yeah.
to find hookups. They're on
Hmm.
Hinge and anything else to find a husband. Is
Yeah.
that pretty
Hmm.
fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, I found my husband on Hinge. Yes.
Guys need to be coming into the DMs and they need to say, "Hi, I see on your profile that you're looking for a committed relationship. I'm also looking for a committed relationship. What does that look like to you? Tell me your vision of a committed relationship.
Yeah.
Is that a good opening line?
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. If I saw that, I would be floored. Yeah.
This is it. When I tell men to do this, they stare at me like I'm stupid. They think that I'm going to get them shot because they think I'm going to ruin their chances,
Yeah,
right? And then they do it, and then they get a girlfriend almost immediately.
I bet. Yeah. Mm,
The reason guys don't do this is because guys have been programmed to be very approval seeking. Guys, often the nice guys who struggle most in dating, are anxiously attached. I was having dinner with Dr. Robert Glover, who's the expert on nice guy syndrome. And he was talking about, nice guys, they shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly because they just do not know how to have these conversations. And he's right. They don't know how to have these conversations. And that's why they get ghosted. That's why they get frustrated. That's why we have the incel thing going on right now is the guys just do not know how to communicate with a woman who's here to find a husband. And they're pretending that she's here to talk about sushi. That's a
mm.
major, major problem.
And so what would you say to the girl who's on the dating apps that's like, well, how do I get that guy? Like, well, where is that guy? Like, how do I,
Mhm.
like what do you do? How do you find
If
him?
you're a woman, if you are a woman on a dating app, you basically can set your price for anything you want. It really, though, is learning to filter properly for the right men. Again, most women look at me like I'm stupid. My female clients come in, and I say, you need to say on your profile, only looking for a committed relationship. When guys start talking to you, you need to move the conversation, toward asking if he's in for a committed relationship. You need to ask that on the first date if he's interested in a committed relationship. Well, I can't ask that. He's not going to be interested. He'll leave because all the other girls are giving everything away for free. So I at least can't scare him away. No, scare him away because the guys who are looking for a wife don't want a girl who is super fun on the first date. They want a woman who is living to her goals and her principles so that he can trust you and he can have a decent conversation with you and he can build a life with you. So make sure you're marketing correctly to those guys. When a woman changes her profile to be fully in line with, I want a husband, this is what I want in a husband. He doesn't have to make nine figures kind of thing, but I'm looking for a husband. These are the character virtues that I'm looking for in my husband. DM me only if you're serious about commitment. When a woman changes that, like that, like
Mhm.
that, the quality of men she starts pulling in changes drastically.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say now we're in a relationship, we're in a committed relationship, but we find maybe somebody's more anxiously attached and the other person's more avoidantly attached.
Mhm.
Can we kind of sort that out as we're in the relationship and
Yeah,
figure
you
this
have
out?
to. You
Yeah.
have to. Our attachments were broken in relationships. They can only be fixed in relationships. Now, that doesn't mean only romantic relationships, but romantic relationships present the biggest opportunity for fixing them. So, as long as both partners are even just a little bit willing to try, even just a little bit, yes, you can 100% fix that dynamic. And in fact, fixing that dynamic together, what it does is create this special bond where you become each other's first real love that you've ever experienced because nobody else has ever accepted and bonded to them properly in that way ever before. It's a phenomenal experience unlike anything else, and it bonds you with all of the brain chemicals at once. It is incredible.
Yeah. And I will say too, what if it's just you have one person really willing to do the work? The other person's kind of like, okay, what like, can you still make it work that way?
If the man is the one who is working to change, yes. If the woman
Okay.
is the one working to change, very rarely. It usually has to be the man who initiates a lot of the change. And then women, research is interesting on this. Women actually follow men about 97% of the time. The other 2 to 3% of the time kind of makes up what we think is maybe the percentage of personality disorders in the United States. So it's about 97% of the time women follow men into change. Men very rarely follow women into change, almost never, unless the woman pressures him. This is why you see guys when a woman says, okay, it's time to get a divorce. He says, wait, I'm willing to try now. But she's already been done for like 3 years by the time she says the word divorce. He's now willing to try. That's the big disconnect. So a woman has to, what's the right way to say this? Check me on this. Tell me if this is wrong.
Uh-huh.
The feminine role is to call the masculine to a quest, to set a quest for the masculine and say, you need to achieve X for us and our family. And the masculine's role is to go on that quest, achieve that thing, and bring it back for that family, which she will then use, and she will take that and build it for her and use that for her family. He acquires and she utilizes and she enhances, if that makes sense. So the woman needs to give the man that quest to go improve. If the man rejects that quest, then there really is no hope for the relationship.
Ooh, I like that. I think something my therapist said to me was to have influence, like that if a man can take influence, that's a big deal, right? And to
Well, it's
kind of maybe
crucial.
go, yeah, and to go
It's
on that
crucial.
quest you're talking about. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've been
Mhm.
married for 15 years now with my wife,
Yeah.
and um, I am the head of the household and I make the final decisions because she frankly doesn't want that pressure of being the final decider. But she is my most trusted advisor in the world. I listen to her before I listen to anybody else. I bring challenges to her and I don't say, what should we do? I say, this is what I'm considering. Can you see anything that I've missed? Is
Mm,
there anything that you might want to add to this? Is there any bonus to this? I can bring those ideas to her and run them through her brain and have her work on them as well. The male brain goes back to observe and forward to act upon. The female brain goes back to observe and then back and forth to analyze. When we put our brains together, the man leading, but the woman advising, we make an incredible, unstoppable team.
yeah, yeah, I could see that. And so going back to attachment, what would you say? I know you said at the beginning of the conversation, family, that kind of the system we grew up in is a big sort of determination of what gives us our type of attachment. What else? Are there
Mhm.
other things that impact how we attach to others?
You know, your initial caregivers are the biggest piece, how your initial caregivers take care of you. And honestly, if they dump you off in daycare way too early and way too long, you're going to learn that
Adam,
you
you're
are not
gonna.
going to be
So I
connected.
know. Okay, Adam,
I know.
I
No, I
know.
know.
Tell me
I know.
more. Tell
And
me more. I know.
I'm not here to be down on any moms who are forced to use daycare. You know, there are hard choices that many people make. We do need to understand the reality of those things, right? If you're going to ingest poison, you need to know how that poison is going to act.
Yeah.
You need to know how to manage it. So daycare way too early and for way too long. There's a couple problems there. Number one, the baby is they can smell, so they can smell that these are strangers around them, and that can actually initiate a process where they feel like they've been stolen from their family. So that could be a problem where they will be afraid, right? They'll be very afraid. If they bond to the caregivers at the daycare, but then keep changing caregivers and caregivers go away, those create wounds and losses. If you're gone all day long and then you barely come home at night, but you're exhausted and you don't have much time to play with that child and be close to them and intimate with them, then you come home, you hug them a bit and you put them down. And now the message that's being sent is you don't have time or inclination to be spending with them and be bonding with them. So the messages you accidentally send can be very catastrophic. There are ways to manage some of this. Okay. Again, moms out there, if you're gritting your teeth and you're like, what is this man telling me? My life is over. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Right. There's ways to manage this. You do need to be prioritizing the right bonding with your child. As they grow, you need to be communicating with them about why this is happening, about what these changes are. You need to get them into as stable of a daycare environment as possible, not endlessly rotating through strangers kind of thing.
Hmm.
Certain daycare programs are better than others, right? Smaller groups where they get more attention, much better than giant groups where they're competing for attention. There's a lot of research out there about this, and I very much recommend that moms educate themselves because it will impact your child for the next 80 years of their life. So you need to be aware of that. You're setting them up for that. But also keep in mind that this is not about getting it perfect. You are never going to, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. You will never be a perfect parent, and your child will always have some sort of thing wrong with them when they grow up. It just, well, they'll have some sort of wrong belief or a hurt or a sadness. What you need to foster is what's called a self-correcting family system, where the child comes to you and says, Mom, I have this sad memory. Mom, I have this sad thought. Mom, I kind of wonder sometimes if you don't want to be with me. Mom, I kind of wonder if you don't like me. And you could say, baby, why would you say that? What makes you feel that way? And they could say, well, because you don't really spend this much time with me. And you could say, I would love to give you all of my time in the entire world. Unfortunately, here are some of the difficult realities. It's not my fault or your fault. Here is where we're at. Here is what we can do. Can we prioritize our time differently? What would help you feel more loved in the time that we do have? How can I show you that you are a priority, even if I don't have time? Right. So you may not catch it when they're tiny, but you can start improving on it when they get bigger. So then when they hit adult stage, you guys have this incredible thriving bond, and then they don't end up going out and dating people who ignore them or competing for attention as adults. You can grow that. So do not despair. Do not despair, moms, if you feel like you have to have them in daycare right now. I know the reality is hard, and I'm
Yeah,
not here to judge.
Adam, because I was going to say, so my daughter, I have a daughter, she's almost 2. She's in daycare.
Mhm.
It's not my favorite thing, right?
Mhm.
Like, of
I know.
course, I would love to spend every second, but like you're saying, it's the reality. So my initial reaction is like, Adam, but listen to
I know.
me. Cause,
I know.
and
I know.
so that, um, so I think that for me is like the piece where it's like, okay, let's say she does, the daycare people switch a lot or she doesn't like the daycare, but to be able to sort of correct it later is what you're telling me is
Mhm.
like,
Well, yes. And
yeah.
even, I've got a 2-year-old and a three and I've got a newborn, I've got a
Oh, wow.
2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and then a 7.5-year-old. I got 8 kids. I
Oh
think
my
that's
gosh.
I think that's all of them that I list. There's
Wow.
another one coming every day.
Yeah.
And that's things that I do ask them questions, and parents need to learn the art of asking questions. Baby, do you understand that I love you more than anything else in the whole world? Do you believe that? It's okay if you don't. I really want to know what you feel. So do you really know that I love you more than anything? Do you know I will never ever stop loving you? Do you know that if I could, I would spend every single day with you? Do you know
Hmm.
that? Okay. Well, that's good that you do. If they're like, no, they're not sure. You're like, hey, you know what? If you ever wonder, please ask me. You can always ask me questions. I raise my kids with that. That we have an absolute, I hate the word like open door policy, but they can ask me anything at any time whenever they need to, and I will give them an honest answer. And if it's something that requires more discussion, we'll set a time to discuss it. We will
Yeah.
never brush their concerns aside. They will always be heard. So then they can ask me some pretty hard questions. Like I started my business. I've been traveling more. My oldest daughter said, "Dad, when is your next day off?" And I was like, baby, I have no idea. I can't even tell you that right now because we got so many things up in the air. Well, Dad, why don't you spend as much time with us as you used to? And I said, that is a great question, sweetheart. Let's sit down and let's talk about that. Right? What is daddy doing and why is daddy doing this? Well, what can we do? How can we schedule days together where they're special? What can we do for our dates? What can
Yeah.
we do for this? What am I building? Right? What am I doing with this business? Who am I helping? How am I acquiring money? Right? And we talked about things. And by the end of it, she was pumped. She was like, this is wonderful. I understand. This is great. I do wish I had more time with you. Okay, you're promising me that we will build additional time into the future. Right now, it's this window. Like she's 6, but she's astoundingly brilliant. She's gonna be smarter than I am someday. But she gets it when you communicate in those little languages and you can show them, and then you have to be consistent. You can't promise them you'll spend more time with them and then don't. You have to really build that in. And that's that trust that you can foster in. So don't be afraid to have those conversations with your kids. Talk to your
Yeah.
kids. Really,
I
really talk to your kids.
I love that. And I kind of in my own what I do, I mean, because right, I take her to daycare in the morning. She's there usually till the afternoon. And then when she comes home, I just try to be super locked in, right? Like it is just you and me.
Awesome.
We take walks every day. Even if we're watching
Awesome.
TV, I'll just sit there with her and watch TV. So that's sort of
Awesome.
my own little way of trying to like manage at least my feelings. So like I feel so guilty leaving you at daycare. So
Well, and that's that right there is the
I know.
challenge. Moms do it because they feel guilty.
Yeah.
Stop instead. Pause on that. Pause on
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Okay.
Because you're not doing this for no reason. You're doing this to care for your family. So
Yes.
step back for a moment and breathe and say, okay, I have to do this to care for my family. What is my goal? To build a wonderful, loving family where everybody feels safe and loved for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then how can I invest this time afterward with her so that she, 20 years from now, will feel loved and cared for? Right? Start doing that. Think of the investment that you're doing at that time. Don't feel mom guilt is so real. I know it is, but like you are investing smartly into your family and you're doing a good job. Keep doing it that way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, I guess what I'm wondering is I look at, you know, nowadays on social media, I see so many videos, like just wild videos of parents doing crazy and kids doing it. Like, what is going on? Is it the attachment stuff that's the problem right now, or what's going on?
Yeah,
It,
back in the 1980s, the research that they did indicated that attachment issues were at about a 35% rate, where 35% of people were insecurely attached and had problems, and
yeah,
about 65% of people had secure attachment. In the late 90s, early 2000s, they did more research. It was about 50-50. Now, the newest research from the last 5 to 10 years seems to indicate that it's about 35% secure and about 65% insecure. So the attachment issues are growing astronomically worse, catastrophically worse. We are seeing, We are seeing social collapse, but in a social setting. Our systems are still here. We still have food. We still have highways. It's not the zombie apocalypse, but our society itself is collapsing socially and mentally. And that's what we're seeing. These attachment issues, they kick on during extreme survival modes and bad environments is what they're meant for, like the collapse of empires, like somebody has burned down your village and you now have to survive. This is meant for survival adaptations, and 65% of the population, especially now Gen Z and Gen Alpha coming after them, 65% of the population is now reacting as though we are in a collapse. We are in a collapse. That's why it's getting so much worse. So you're seeing family members and people freaking out. Mental health is going way off the charts. It is, the divorce rate's actually going down, people don't realize, but it's only going down because nobody's hardly getting married anymore.
Mm.
Millennials were the generation most likely to want children, and they were the generation mostly least likely to have children because they just couldn't. 90% of women who are childless and over the age now of being able to bear children, 90% of them said they actually wanted children, and it wasn't a choice; it was an accident that they didn't have children. So again, social collapse. We are in a social collapse system, so people need to be very aware of that. The children you're raising are not children that are just going to pick up and get a business, get a job with a corporation and just get a job, be happy, get a white picket fence. They're not going to be raised in a system. They're going to be raised where they have to not fight for survival, but they're going to be raised where their relationships are everything because who they know is going to get them the resources, the jobs, the success, the safety that we're looking for as we rebuild, hopefully, this next civilization that's coming after this one. And if you can build your kids' relationship skills, you're going to give them the absolute tools they need to thrive in the next system.
Why is that happening? What is it? Cell phones? Is it what is it? Why?
Oh boy, do you want the long answer that I've been researching for a lot of years?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the early 1900s, World War One, so many men died in World War One and went through the meat grinder that when they came back, they were not the same. We actually had after that was the lost generation, where men were just lost in their heads. They were lost in factories. They were lost in 18-hour shifts, 6 days a week. They were lost in just death, their friends dying, watching their friends dying from shrapnel. Whole generation was lost. And then we had the massive decadent 1920s where they just threw everything they had into dopamine binging and trying to feel better and ignore the pain. And then you had the social collapse and the Great Depression, and you had the Dust Bowl, and then you had more people losing their family farms and moving into cities and then getting factory jobs and losing their family networks and losing their neighborhoods and losing their religious connections and losing every piece that they had that was a safety net. And then you had the World War II, which was another meat grinder that killed another generation of men and more men just traumatized. So now you have multiple generations of people. Their parenting skills are not parenting skills. Their parenting skills are survive and manage and make the kids shut up so they don't die, is what it was, and
Wow.
keep them alive. And then you had the baby boomers who said, nobody understands me. Screw the system, screw the man, screw my family. And then they had mobile sex wagons, the cars that came out so they could just drive around having sex with anybody they wanted, anywhere they wanted. And it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Ignore the pain, close everything out. About half of them understood that love was sacrifice, and about half of them said, people hate me, so I hate them. And that's why the baby boomers right now are tripling their divorce rates in their 70s and 80s still. They gave birth to Generation X and Y, who were like deer in the headlights. They were raised for a society that does not exist anymore, and they are still in denial about it. All the nostalgia things that are coming out about remember this from your childhood, that's for
Hmm.
Generation X and Generation Y is what that's for, because that's they're trying to hide back in that generation that doesn't exist anymore, back in that society. Then the boomers hated their first generation of kids for being deer in the headlights, so they divorced their first partners. They got second partners and said, I'm going to make tougher kids that are just like me. And they made the millennials, who hate them and wish that they were dead, and they hate each other because they're so similar in those capacities of screw the man, screw society, screw everyone. Except now the millennials have never seen a functioning family system. All they've heard about was boomers yelling at them saying, you should serve your family, me. And they said, nobody serves me, so I'm out of here. They gave birth to Generation Z, who now has grown up not understanding that a functioning family system is even possible. Again, two-thirds of them don't even have secure attachment. And they're in, again, living in the ruins of a civilization that is now collapsing socially, and they're just sitting here saying, "I don't think anything works," and their self-deletion rates are off the charts, even among 11 and 12-year-olds. They're checking out early as fast as possible, and it really is getting massively worse through the generations. Now, all of that sounds horrifically, agonizingly bleak, but at the same time, there's a rise of creators right now who are bypassing the gatekeepers, who are teaching the answers, teaching about society, about family, about attachment theory, about better relationship dynamics, about purpose, meaning, about how to not just restore what was, but how to take the best parts of what has been and build a new system with it that serves us in a better way. I think something phenomenally good is coming. Not a utopia, but I think a rekindling of the human spirit, I think, is coming very quickly. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go through a very, very dark time as a lot of things wash away, and a lot of people likely wash away with it. So the sooner that we get educated, the sooner we get people listening and smartly absorbing attachment theory like yourself and like you're helping your listeners do, the more we arm our children with those healthy skills, the better they will be in the future, because there's going to be so much opportunity in the future for our children.
Wow. I had chills just hearing what you said. That's crazy. Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. And to your point, I feel like now we have a lot more people who are self-aware and trying, and they're people like myself who are like, I'm just so sick of this, and they're trying to do better. So I'm hopeful, right? Like you're saying, there's hope, right? At
There's
the
oh,
end of
there is
this.
so much hope. As
Yeah.
much as it sounds like there's not, there is so much hope, you guys. There's so much hope, and it gets so much better and so fast when you start learning attachment and when you connect to people who actually give a rip and when they care about you and you form a functioning, trusting relationship and friendships and you really bond with the right people, your life gets so much better and so fast. It's amazing how fast a life can turn around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good news. That's good news, at least. And would you say, because my initial reaction, I thought you were going to say, like with the rise of cell phones and social media, people feel so alone. Like, does that have anything to do with it or not
That made
as
it
much?
that made it worse. So we've
Made it
tracked in
worse. Yeah.
2007, the first iPhone really hit the market, mass
Hmm.
connection, and teens started spending more time alone and isolated in their homes, and their rate skyrocketed. And what they did was trade the serotonin of in-person connections and conversations for the dopamine of the apps. Is what they traded it for. So it confuses your brain by saying I'm fulfilled and I'm satiated because I'm getting my social connection, but it's the wrong brain chemicals and you're just as isolated and your brain really knows it on the back end, but you don't. It's
Mm.
like if you eat nothing but ice cream, you'll say, "Oh, I'm full." Well, yeah, but you're massively nutritionally deficient and you're going to get sick and throw up. And it's the same thing. Your cell phone is not a good substitute for actual human connection.
Wow. And so what you're, because it sounds like what you're saying, like this is like a generational, this has been going on for kind of a long time. It's
100
been sort of
years?
paving the way for that. Yeah. Wow. And so I guess, I mean, just to, we can kind of maybe wrap it up here in a few minutes, Attic, but this has just been like so enlightening. Like, how can we sort of look ahead? Like, what can we look forward to in terms of attachment? Like, you kind of touched on it at the end there, but this hope that you're
Oh,
talking
man.
about.
Oh, man. Well, so go back to secure attachment. It's that's what we all want.
Yeah.
That's what our brains are built for. When you have secure attachment, then you get connected with people who they are consistent with their values and they're self-policing. So you don't have to keep other people honest because they keep themselves honest because they want to be. You don't have to keep people aligned to their goals because they have goals that are honorable and respectable goals and they align to them and they pursue them. And you don't have to keep them aligned to fixing their problems because they take ownership of their mistakes because they want to. They're growth minded and they accept you for your problems while keeping you accountable because they don't enable you, but they want you to grow. And then you desire to grow because you're part of a group that is growing and bonding and encouraging each other. And then once you have that, you can build true mutual fulfillment with these people. And I know it sounds like a fairy tale to many people, but once you have those levels of trust and the ability to measure who to trust, and once you understand what people want from you, which is those same four things right there that I just listed in reverse, they want that from you too. When you have that, you can build sustainable relationships that not only encourage you, but that help you along the way so that you know the people to talk to. You can solve problems faster and more thoroughly. You can get the right connections to increase your wealth, increase your power, absorb a blow that happens, absorb a problem that happens. You have you have people that love you, and then your brain floods with oxytocin, feeling accepted and loved, and then your brain floods with serotonin, good conversation and human connection, and that's the chemical combination for happiness. When you have adequate oxytocin and serotonin, you have happiness and contentment and fulfillment, and it comes about through your relationships. People wonder why they're not happy, but they're sitting alone in an apartment with a six-figure job, but they don't go anywhere because they work from home, and all they do is watch Netflix and they binge porn and they order DoorDash. They don't even have to speak to the driver, and they have a cat, and that's all that they have in their whole life. And they have a couple people that are not really their friends, but they can hang out with them occasionally, and that's their life. And they wonder why they're so wretchedly unhappy. It's because humans are not meant to live like this. Humans are meant to live with other humans who are trustworthy, who are honorable, and who are loving. Those are the three things that we need, and there are those humans left in this world, very much so. In fact, we're growing in number. We're reversing that 35%. It is my mission in life to increase that 35% up as high as I can. I'm on a mission to teach 1 billion people before the day I die about secure attachment. I'm going to do it. I'm going to
Oh,
make it happen.
good. And I know you will. You will, because I mean, you've said you're great, Adam. This has
Well,
been
thank
so
you.
great. And I will say too, to your point, we kind of focused on romantic relationships, but me personally, once my romantic relationships got better and I started working those, everything else in my life started getting better. My work stuff and my coworkers and things shifted at work and even friendships and all these things improved. And so to your point, it's like just taking care of that little bit will kind of change a lot, right?
Yeah. Turns out human relationships are human relationships. When you learn how to do them right, when you learn the systems for them, you apply it everywhere and it works.
Wow. Adam, this has been so great. It was so good, nice to talk to you. Is there anything else you want to add or say that we didn't get to or
Mm. Oh my gosh. To all the people at home, life gets so much better. And it doesn't even require that much work. It just requires the right work. It requires the right approach. You have to fix the right things in the right order. Everything that is in you is designed to operate in a specific way, and it will work properly when you align yourself biochemically correctly and in your relationships correctly, and you will feel good. If you feel bad, that's your internal sensors telling you something is out of alignment so that you feel bad on purpose. That's why you have the ability to have that feeling. Find the right systems, find the right arrangement, you will feel incredible. And you still can do that even in this modern world. In fact, other people want it from you more than anything. So if you do it, you're not a burden to other people. You'll actually be answering everybody else's requests and all of their cravings as well. Other people crave this with you just as much as you do.
and you're not so it's not even necessary. Like, are you saying you could just find better friendships, but like not necessarily you have to go to a therapist and work this out, or is that part of it? Is that a big part of what we're talking about?
I'm not a big advocate for the religion of therapy. I don't think therapy is the answer, but I do think that we need to learn the skills we didn't learn in childhood. We
Hmm.
need to learn the systems we don't understand yet. We need to learn how things fit together. And then once we do, the answers are found in love and connection with other humans. That's really where the healing happens. You definitely need training to get there, but that's where it happens, is when you are with the right human beings. That's where you'll find your fulfillment and your healing.
And a life with love, hence the name of this podcast. That's why, yeah, I wanted to start it in the first place.
I love it.
So, Adam, so wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having me here and helping me reach that 1 billion people.
Doing my little part. That's why I tell me I'm doing my little part a little bit, but you're so welcome. Thank you.